You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Hello and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I'm your host Nesbit, and today we're going to dive back into the last tracks on the Heavy Metal Mixtape. So this is part 6. If this is your first episode in the series, you're really missing out. You should listen to the first 5. We've been going through track by track. Today we're going to continue on with our dive into the last songs on side B. This is Heavy Metal Mixtape. So, Heavy Metal Mixtape came out in 2015, and we mentioned that it was a limited edition cassette release. But a little known fact is there was going to be a volume 2 of the Heavy Metal Mixtape. Here's Jarvis with more details on that.
We did have an idea to do volume 2, and actually I have already stocked up all the tracks. We were going to do, well, all but one, and I'll explain that. But we had an idea to do Heavy Metal Mixtape volume 2, and it was going to be called Canadian Steel, and we were going to feature only heavy metal bands from Canada. And I'd gotten most of the tracks, and a lot of people may not know this, but Bryan Adams, yes, the Bryan Adams, the pop star, he wrote 2 songs for Kiss on the Creatures for the Night record. He wrote Rock and Roll Hell and War Machine, and I approached his management to, I had seen him, we had an off day on tour in Austin, Texas on the Final Curse tour in 2016. And we stayed with our friend Sean Weingardner, and he had an extra ticket to go see Bryan Adams. And I've been a longtime fan, so I was really excited about that. So we went to the show. It was fucking amazing. I wore my, old battle vest with my, actually, Brent gave this to me years ago. It had a Creatures of the Night, Kiss Creatures of the Night back patch. And I wore that to the show, just kind of in honor of Kiss and Bryan Adams writing some Kiss stuff. But from there, I got the idea for the mixtape volume 2, and I contacted Bryan Adams' management, and we were going back and forth for a bit. And I just basically said, look, I'm putting out this tape. It's all Canadian bands, and it'd be great for Bryan to do this, to represent his fellow countrymen. You know, there's really no money in it, but it would be a great selling point to get this thing going. And they replied back and said, yes, Bryan agrees in principle, but there's going to have to be some kind of mastering, because I think he had it only on a cassette or maybe an old reel-to-reel. And I said, yeah, we can definitely do something. We can do it's called baking, where you actually bake the tape. I think you put it in at like 50 degrees Fahrenheit or something. And you actually, because the tape is magnetic and it goes bad over time. We've all heard bad tape. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation I'm sure Armand can talk about, since he does that a lot at the Captain Quarters at his studio. He does a lot of tape restoration. But the conversations never went any further. I kept trying to get a hold of them again, and they kind of lost touch. So I never really did anything with that. It's been so long. I wonder if I should contact them again. Maybe if we get some good listener feedback on this and they want to hear that, I can be persuaded to push that again.
So Volume 2 still hasn't seen the light of day, but I think there's still hope for Canadian steel. But Jarvis has kind of continued on with the mixtape idea, but kind of in a different form.
In the meantime, with my label, Iron Grip, I've been working with Rob McNeese again, the guy who I mentioned who made all these mixtapes for Night Demon on the road for all those years. And we've been doing a series called Mystery Metal Mixtape. And once a month, this tape comes out. And it's cool because there's nothing in the liner notes. There's no bands or song titles. And all the stuff is recorded direct from vinyl to a cassette and then hand dubbed onto another cassette. So there's really nothing digital that touches. Wow, I never really thought of that. That is pretty fucking amazing. There's nothing digital that touches these Mystery Metal mixtapes. And we're up to about Volume 4 now. You can check those out on irongripheavymetal.com or theheavymetalstore.com. They're just really cool. They're a really fun listen and really, I mean, much like he turned us on to a lot of really cool underground stuff. I know this is doing the same for the heavy metal public because we get a lot of feedback on this, and it's just really cool. People that you would never think, people that you think have heard everything, just going like, wow, I never knew about this band from 1980 or whatever. But he DJs the segments in between the songs and gives a backstory on each band and each track. So it's a really cool thing. It's like really reclaiming the attention spans of the heavy metal public because we have so many distractions these days with digital devices in our hands and social media and this and that, and so much noise. And with these mixtapes, I mean, you really just have to let it play and you have to listen to it to find out who it is and what it's all about. And so that's what I'm most proud of, that and being able to expose some great heavy metal that has probably not been heard by most people.
So mixtapes still going strong today. Another thing we haven't really mentioned yet about this heavy metal mixtape is the cover art. Now I have a copy of it here in front of me, and it's pretty cool. I mean, the label looks like a handwritten, it looks like it's written with a felt tip marker. Inside, the track listing here is it looks like it's written in a ballpoint pen. It looks like a real mixtape from back in the day. And the cover itself it's a cool drawing of a hand holding the heavy metal mixtape coming out of a skull, a smashed skull. It's pretty cool. Pictures of all this on the subscriber section on nightdemon.net. But it was designed by Ruben Perez. And he's credited with the layout and the artwork. So he did a really cool job on this. It has the look and feel of a real homemade heavy metal mixtape from back in the 80s. But at the same time, it's the best looking homemade mixtape you've ever seen. So it looks really cool. So we reached out to Ruben Perez, the artist, and I didn't get a sound clip from him, but I did get a quote from him. He wrote back and said, "I got involved with the heavy metal mixtape when Brent and Jarvis hit me up about working on the art for it. We wanted it to look like it was handmade, a mixtape made by some metalhead, so the whole design was hand-drawn." And he did a pretty cool job. Mission accomplished. So let's dive back into the tracks. So continuing on with side B, before we get our next track, we get another sample, and it's another clip from a movie.
Now you see that evil will always triumph, because good is dumb.
Spaceballs, another great sample. Score one for Evil Metal, right? Classic comedy. Spaceballs is one of the most legendary cult films from the 80s as far as comedy goes. And, Mel Brooks, you can't go wrong, right? So this one fits in there perfectly.
So after that sample, we continue on with the tracks. And the next one is awesome. It's Volture with Rule Breaker. So, Volture from Richmond, Virginia. Just like the band Bat that we mentioned a few episodes ago, and I should note that this band shares 2 members with Bat. It's a pretty cool track. It's kind of like, I don't know, Motorhead meets Megadeth meets Halloween put through a new wave of British heavy metal filter. I don't know, that's not a very good description. However you describe them, this track is awesome. Here's Dave Boyd of Volture.
Hey everybody, this is Dave from the band Volture. I hope you're doing well. This has been a challenging year, so I hope you're hanging in there. I want to start with a quick band update. As some of you may know, we lost our drummer very suddenly and unexpectedly a few years ago. Carlos was an excellent musician and wonderful human being. He's going to be missed very much by us, his friends, and his family. Rest in power, Los. Since then, we've been taking a break from Volture to focus on other bands and projects, but now we're talking about getting it rolling again. No concrete news to report right now, but stay tuned for updates. We hope to be rocking out very soon. We're an excellent company on this compilation, and all the band's tracks are top shelf material. Compilations are a great way to get exposed to a bunch of new bands, and mixtapes are definitely very nostalgic to me. Back in the mid to late 80s, there was no way to sample new bands without getting your hands on some kind of physical media. We're all very spoiled with the internet now. I remember buying bricks of those Maxell blank cassette tapes and making tons of mixtapes to share with my friends. And it was more than just a bunch of songs. You're really endorsing the bands. It was similar to sewing a group of band patches on a denim jacket. You put a little bit of your heart and soul into the tape. Some of these tapes would get passed around, duplicated, and often took on a life of their own. So you had to choose wisely and only include your favorite tracks. This compilation reminds me of those tapes because it boasts such a great track listing. Volture included the song Rule Breaker on the Heavy Metal Mixtape, which was first released by Tank Crime Records as a 7-inch, along with a cover of Gotham City's Killer Angels. We also released a video for this track. It's a traditional heavy metal fist banger. It reminds me a lot of a cross between something off of Riot's Thundersteel and a Diamond Head track. It's fast-paced, full of energy and heavy metal fury. We hope you enjoy it.
Got me feeling alright.
I love that song. I love how it breaks down in the middle section too for the solos. Really cool.
Volture, Rule Breaker. Okay, so these guys also featured Ryan Waste and Nick from the band Bat that we heard earlier on side A. So they actually have 2 songs on this comp. Well, at least those guys have 2 songs because they're in both bands. But Volture kind of came out as one of the earlier new wave of traditional heavy metal bands that we had heard of. They were definitely around before Night Demon. And among those, that first wave of new wave of traditional heavy metal resurgence bands. Anyway, just, you know, another classic metal band from Richmond, Virginia area. And, you know, I mean, what can I say? Another band that's gone too. I mean, I kind of wish they would have stuck around as well to help the scene thrive. They did play at Frost and Fire 3, and John Gallagher from Raven ended up singing for them, like at the last minute. He had like sheet music up there, or I mean lyrics on a sheet music stand. But I mean, come on, Nick, he wasn't about to learn the words to all the songs, but he did a really, really good job, and they sounded really great that night.
So the next track on the Heavy Metal Mixtape is Hessian with Old, Wild, and Free. And I'll tell you, it starts out with a pretty trippy sounding little intro.
By iron, by sulfur, quicksilver, and lead. By scratching, by 7 black sins, and by fear. In fair form with hooves, and with horns upon head. In sucker, a clemet, a custody, a
So formed in 2009 in Portland, Maine. Hessian. This track is from their full length from 2014 called Bachelor of Black Arts. It's a pretty cool name for an album. It's pretty like raw heavy metal. It sounds like it stepped right out of the 70s or the early 80s for me, which is pretty cool. I like that intro where it sounds like some sort of spell being chanted. And there's like some trippy stuff going on halfway through the track. And if you listen to this in headphones, you'll notice it. That intro is repeated kind of really low in the mix halfway through the song, and it comes in one ear and the other. It's really cool sounding. Here's Sally Wasson of Hessian.
My name is Sally Wasson, and I founded Hessian in 2009 with Angus McFarland here in beautiful, mysterious Portland, Maine. Unfortunately, I had to leave the band in 2016 due to compounding health issues, and yes, I do miss it. And I hope to get a new band going as soon as my health is sufficiently improved. The curse of mortality. I love compilations of all kinds. I feel us Generation Xers understand the wealth and weight of a proper mixtape especially well. It's not a comp per se, but I had a pen pal in Sweden 20 plus years back. Jonas, where are you now? Man, that guy loved Freak Kitchen. Anyway, he emailed me a mix with a bunch of real gems on it. Parasites, Night Winds, and Clovenhoof's Laying Down the Law, and what was that German band? Veto, Riders on the Loose. Good times. Totally changed my life. Anyway, as far as extant metal comps, I'm sure like everyone else, it's that first Metal for Mothers, so much great stuff on there. Might be the first place I heard Praying Mantis, though that might have been my Swedes mixtape too. Jonas really hit all the marks. I also dig the Metal Massacre series. No surprise there. Is it Volume 7? I think the one that ends with that great Lost Horizon song. Lost Horizon, New Jersey, 1986. I kind of like the idea that this tape might be rediscovered in 30 years by some of our grandkids, and they'll be like showing their friends this Hessian song or a sweet Savage Master tune and start the resurgence all over again. Time machine. Total magic. The song we contributed to the tape is called Old, Wild, and Free. It's one of mine, and I sing and play lead licks on it. Lead licks. The solo is Angus's. I wrote it from the point of view of a long-forgotten and somewhat hibernating Earth goddess figure, the Cloven Lady, which also has her own song. She's waking up in the song and shaking off the dust and being summoned back to the surface by the ubiquitous wizard. It's kind of a cool image, thinking about what spirits might be sleeping under our cities and dreaming away while subways rumble overhead and rats are sniffing around them. I think we also might be chuckling a little bit here with that song because we were all about 10 years older than most of the bands we were playing with back then. I kind of can't believe this song is almost 12 years old. I had to listen to it before answering this question. I can definitely hear some real old early Aerosmith influence in there, which is not a huge surprise when I'm writing. Anyway, thanks for having me, guys. Be well, and I'll see you around eventually. Can't wait to go to shows again. We'll see ya out there on the high iron.
With a persistence, skills, mandrake torn from the ground. Wolves are running, chances cunning. This is not for heavenly hound. Black salt scatters, the turn of the whale. Jarvis is right out, son of a seal. By outlasting, heavy war. Soaking the clearing, untouched star. Emerging from the madness. Oh, took time to lion. We roll, wild and free. Wild and free. Emerging from the madness. Oh, took time to lion. We roll, wild and free.
Hessian. These guys were cool. And what a great name, Hessian, right? These guys were from Portland, Maine. And, the cool thing about, Maine is like as far northeast as you can go in the United States. And it's not a place that many bands go, but we've always tried to tour in Portland, Maine, and we've had some really good shows there. And that's like kind of on the southwestern tip, I believe, of Maine. I don't quote my geography there, but it's a lot closer to everything else and kind of in that New England area. But a very cool place and a very cool scene. And we met the guitar player Sally in Sweden, actually, in 2014 when we played the Muscle Rock Festival. And we watched Angel Witch together with her, and we became tight friends with her. And she was just super cool. And she was just there as a fan. Hessian wasn't even playing, which is funny because we were watching Angel Witch, and also Tom Draper, our buddy from Carcass and from Pounder, was playing guitar for Angel Witch. That was seeing Angel Witch for the first time was amazing. That was really great for us. But we had Hessian come out to Frost and Fire too and play the after party. They've had that bluesy vibe, but definitely metal, and they were super fucking awesome, and people absolutely loved them at that after party. And it's always good seeing Sally again. This is another band that I believe is no longer around. I know she's not in the band anymore. I think Angus may still be doing it, but I'm just so honored that we were able to capture them here on Heavy Metal Mixtape.
From Portland, Maine. Yeah, I always get a kick out of people when they refer to Maine as way out east or northeast as far as you can go. I'm on the east coast of Canada, so I'm 1,200 miles or 2,000 kilometers further northeast than Maine. So I'm used to hearing it now, but it always cracks me up when I hear people say that. But Hessian, great band, great track. And we're winding down side B, and the tracks just keep delivering. Really great job sequencing this mixtape, too. There's lots of variety and a great flow. This next track kind of has a different vibe. Next up on the Heavy Metal Mixtape is Harbinger, with Die for Metal, Live for Death. So Harbinger from Michigan, they formed in 2005. They describe themselves on their website as high-octane, over-the-top, power-time, punk, thrashing face blockers. And this track is from their full length from 2009 called Doom on You. Here are Harbinger.
My name's Victor, and I was in Harbinger until about 2013.
It's longer than that, wasn't it?
That's when it was over, right?
This is never really over.
It's not over.
Oh, no.
Well, now you got to introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. I'm Matt, and I entered the Harbinger scene in 2004 to do Harbinger things.
And I'm Mike. I entered in Mark II Harbinger because I liked the band a lot, so I joined when I was asked.
The song we contributed to Heavy Metal Mixtape was Die for Metal, Live for Death. And it was a song written in the early days of the band. I remember I was inspired to write the lyrics when I got sent home from a job. I was working at a warehouse where I was getting randomly drug tested, and something about the possibility of losing my job just was so freeing that all these lyrics just were pouring forth. And so I wrote all the lyrics to the song, and then we eventually recorded the song, and I passed that drug test, by the way, with someone else's pee.
So anyway, no, that's as for me, I kind of came in a little later in the picture. I just happened to like the song so much that I joined the band.
And I remember yelling and screaming at my brother while we were writing it, and almost fighting over it until it was finally finished. It was precarious. That was re-recorded and redestroyed and recorded and redestroyed a myriad of times.
It barely survived, but it survived.
Yeah, just barely.
Now told the tale in Wine, Women, Song, and Heavy Metal Mixtape.
Yeah, the Harbinger track. So I didn't really know Harbinger as a band at all. I think a lot of this stuff, since we came up with the idea for it on the Curse of the Damned tour, I mean, when we were just traveling through cities, we were picking up more tracks from bands. So we played with Harbinger. We didn't really know them before, and I don't really know if they've done really much after. But Mike, who was also in Acid Witch, was in this band, and we knew Acid Witch from playing with them at the Doom and June Fest in Vegas. And yeah, Mike was just super awesome. He's always been a great guy, and he used to set up shows for us, and he set us up at this bar in Detroit that's no longer there. I think it's called Smalls, and it was small. But Harbinger played, and they were awesome. So it's basically like, hey, we're putting together this comp. Do you want to put a song on there? And that's pretty much how that happened. And it was just very quick and easy. And especially if you've got an underground, independent, unsigned band, I mean, getting a song on a compilation is very easy to do that. And this track is actually pretty fucking awesome.
On October 31st, 2015, Night Demon released Heavy Metal Mixtape. This collection of underground heavy metal was released on 666 hand-numbered limited edition cassettes. It sold out in nearly a week. Since then, many people have scoured the internet and paid insane prices to get a copy of this tape. Now in 2021, it is near impossible to find a copy new or used of Heavy Metal Mixtape. Until now. Night Demon has opened the vault and released a handful of original factory-sealed Heavy Metal Mixtapes. These are available for subscribers only. For those of you who are late to the game, head over to nightdemon.net/subscriber. Sign up and head over to the subscriber-only store to get your copy of Heavy Metal Mixtape while they still left.
Okay, now we're up to the compilation closer, the closing track, the last track on the Heavy Metal Mixtape. And they finished strong with Widow, Take Hold of the Night. So another North Carolina metal band, Widow. They've been together since 2000, and they've released 5 albums since then. And this track is from their 2011 album, Life's Blood. Here's Chris from Widow.
Hello, my name's Chris Bennett. Play guitar, heavy metal band Widow. We've been around for 21 years. And made 5 albums. Our last album is called Carved in Stone. It's on Pure Steel Records. We really started our band just out of a love that we all have for traditional metal, and that's really kept us going all these years. Really amazed to say that, we've made 5 full-length albums, and, it's been a lot of fun along the way, and, I'm grateful that people listen to what we're doing. I really appreciate it. And it's an amazing thing to, be able to connect your music with metal fans all over the world. The song we did on Heavy Metal Mixtape is called Take Hold of the Night. We also made a video for the song, and it was just one of those songs that you knew there was something special about it. It felt to us like, a song like, oh man, we're going to be playing this song live for sure. And, now it's kind of turned into a song that we can't do a show without playing. So it was just one of those that I think the meaning of the lyrics and, the way the chorus came across, we felt it was special for us and our history as a band. So it was definitely the right song to be on the compilation.
Then we come to the final track by a band called Widow, another band out of that North Carolina scene. These guys are fucking awesome, and they are some of our oldest friends also, along with a lot of these other bands. But as far as Night Demon goes, this is one of the first bands that we connected with. We actually met them in Madrid, Spain at the Pounding Metal Fest. We were both playing it. It was our first trip to Europe, and that's actually where we met Kit Ekman. He had heard about Night Demon, and so had Widow, and they came up and introduced themselves. But that just started this lifelong bond with Kit and with these guys as well. But I've always loved this song. They're another great 3-piece band, and it's such a great way to end this comp. It just gives you that great feeling. You just go out and kick some ass on the weekend, right? It's always about the weekend and Friday night in metal, right? Like, I guess every day is like that because metalheads and headbangers traditionally don't have jobs, right? No, that's a bad stereotype. But what a great way to end the comp. And Widow, again, like a band that hasn't been very active in recent years, but that's what I love about this compilation. Heavy Metal Mixtape, looking back on it 5-6 years later, it really did its job. We wanted to encapsulate the moment, and we did. We successfully did that. And, it's great that we can have it here and we can revisit it. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to secure some kind of licensing to get this thing out there and keep it alive and repress it. Who knows? But it's here. It's here for us. It was there for the people there. And I know for certain that this made an impact for a lot of these bands, especially overseas. We were shipping a lot of these tapes overseas, and they did include a digital download in them. So for people that didn't have a cassette player, they just kind of used it as a novelty, but it did its job, and I'm very, very proud of that.
So the last track, but not quite the end of the mixtape. There's one last sample before the tape runs out.
The one thing that we wanted from them one day was to go in and talk to them about us owning our own records, which in record company lingo is called the masters. You get your masters back, which means that the songs that we write and the songs we recorded, we end up having control and ownership over, so they can't give them to a shoe company or a toothpaste commercial or something like that.
So the final sample on the tape, this is the way that the tape ends. And now, actually, this is giving me my answer to how side B started. So I remember now why I found the CD of Metallica, The Thing That Should Not Be. I remember why I brought that out of the archives. It's for this. I do remember that Lars Ulrich had a little thing on there from a press conference that I thought would be a great way to end this compilation. And that's probably how I found the James Hetfield Bill Peters Station ID. So basically in this clip, Lars is talking about walking away with the masters. So basically the masters, it's just record company lingo for the actual master recording for an album. So Metallica, actually, this is from the 80s, this interview that he did, this interview clip, but they eventually did re-sign with Elektra, who was eventually owned by Warner, but they did get their masters back as part of their deal extension, but they signed that extension in 1994, and they didn't get them back till 2012. The 35-year copyright law will explain this. You guys can look it up. I'm not going to go into music business legal talk here. That's not what this podcast is about. I'm sure there's plenty out there that do that. But I just thought this was a really cool thing to hear Lars talk about this in the 80s. And eventually this did come true, and they did get their masters back, and they did start Blackened Recordings, and that's why they put out their own records now. They even bought their own fucking pressing plant. So, Night Demon goals right there. Thank you, Metallica. But anyway, yeah, I just hope you guys have really enjoyed this. It's been so much fun to reminisce about all these great songs and all these great bands and who we were at that time in metal.
So that is the Heavy Metal Mixtape, a killer mix from beginning to end. We mentioned that this tape was released October 31st, Halloween of 2015, but it was actually first made available in limited numbers at the first Frost and Fire Festival. So listeners of the podcast know about the Frost and Fire Festival. The festival was started by Night Demon in 2015, and there's been multiple Frost and Fires now. And one thing you'll notice is that the bands on this mixtape are very highly represented on the festival lineups. So you have Midnight, Night Demon, Visigoth, Spellcaster, Blade Killer, Midnight Chaser, Bat, Steel Prophet, Savage Master, Raven, Volture, Venomous Maximus, Walpurgis. Like, these bands are all on this tape, and they all performed at Frost and Fire. So in a way, this mixtape is sort of like the soundtrack to that scene and that group of bands.
An important thing to be mentioned here is, I suppose, the relationship between the Heavy Metal Mixtape and the Frost and Fire Festival. So the Frost and Fire Festival was a festival that Night Demon created in the fall of 2015. So the festival actually happened in October of 2015, the same month that this mixtape came out. And for those that came to the inaugural fest, they were able to pick up a copy of this early. So basically the festival was the soft release for this tape. You'll find a lot of names on this tape of bands that have played the Frost and Fire Fest. So I'm not going to say that it's a kind of fraternity, even though I guess it is a brotherhood and a sisterhood between these bands. But I mean, just like any scene is created, like-minded people and like-minded musicians gravitate towards each other. So it was just kind of a natural thing when you talk about the scene of underground heavy metal in 2015 on, or even, 5 to 7 years prior to that when the movement kind of kicked off, also known as the new wave of traditional heavy metal. I guess that's what all of us group of bands have been labeled as, besides the obvious bands like Raven or Riot, bands that have been around and were actually the originators or actually part of the new wave of British heavy metal. But there's a real semblance here. I think that when you talk to the bands from the new wave of British heavy metal, they'll tell you that even though all those bands were from England, which is a much smaller country than the United States, they were all labeled as part of this scene of the new wave of British heavy metal. However, a lot of those bands never played with each other. They never knew each other. Some of them had never heard each other's bands, so they weren't really getting influence off of each other. It was just kind of a natural progression of what was happening in music. And the music papers and the magazines and the trades kind of lumped them into this scene of the new wave of British heavy metal, which I love because there's so much diversity in that scene. But when you talk about the new wave of traditional heavy metal, or the scene, I guess, that we're talking about here with this newer crop of bands and this generation, really, a lot of people complain about the internet, right? That it's ruined music and mystery in music and in imagery for bands, and that it's just killed the industry as far as sales. But without the internet, we wouldn't really know about each other's bands here. So when you talk about 80% of the bands on this tape having played our festival in California, they're not California bands. There's maybe, 10% or less are from California. So our scene is what it is. It's not the biggest scene by far in the world, but it is worldwide. And because of the internet, we've been able to connect. And all of these bands are friends. We've all played together in each other's towns. And especially starting out, when these bands would come and tour through Ventura, California, we would book them shows and Night Demon would play the show, and vice versa. Night Demon knows these bands because we've played with them in their respective hometowns. So that's the relation here. It's not a pick your friends over a great band kind of thing. We made it a point to be friends and to befriend the other great bands in the world. And we're happy to feature them on our festival and on this mixtape.
So that's it for this episode of the podcast and the Heavy Metal Mixtape. You can listen to the entire tracks from the mixtape in the subscriber section on nightdemon.net. There's a lot more information with the bands and photos. I know I've mentioned this multiple times now, but there's a very limited number of these mixtapes available in the subscribers only store. I think we're down to like single digits, so grab one while you can. Doing these mixtape episodes was really fun. In case you didn't know, I always crack a beer when I'm recording an episode of the podcast. So I have tomorrow off, no work, and I'm finishing up this episode. I'm going to take this mixtape here, and I'm going out to the shed. I'm going to crank these tunes and maybe have a few more beer. Until next time, this is Nesbitt signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net, click on the subscriber tab, and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All hail, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Visit our website at monstersmadnessandmagic.com to stay up to date on all the dark dealings within the sanctuary of the strange. Enjoy the show.
Hey Metalheads, I'm Mark and I host the Metal Forge. Let me tell you about the show. The Metal Forge features the best underground metal from all over the world. We spend every week with a different artist with interviews, in-depth conversations, and most of all, the music. We also feature audience interactivity where you can submit your questions to the upcoming guests. New episodes are out every Friday at noon Eastern Time at metalforgeradio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Okay, metalheads, you've been complaining that there has not been a channel that plays all of the heavy metal videos from past, present, and future for years and years at this point. Well, that time is over. Heavy Metal Television is back. HeavyMetalTelevision.net is the website. Go there. You can see videos playing 24/7, 365, all the time, all the best from the old school, the new school, and everything in between. Check it out, HeavyMetalTelevision.net. It is where the metal is.